I'm now joined by Sudan Affairs analyst Jan Pospisil, who's in Nairobi. He's also an associate professor at the Centre for Trust, Peace and Social Relations at Coventry University. Jan, welcome. Thanks for being with us. So there are reports of summary executions and among other atrocities. How credible are these reports and what do they suggest about the possibility of ethnic cleansing?
Well, these reports are credible. From all what we hear and all we have seen, there is incredible atrocities committed by RSF fighters. What I would, in a way, qualify, I don't think this is really a top-down order coming from RSF leadership, Hemeti and others that are sometimes not even in the country. They have, the RSF had large recruitment drives over the last years. They fight with mercenaries from all sorts of neighboring countries, partly even from places as far as Colombia. As you have seen from the videos, these are very young fighters, surely not sufficiently trained, often coming from Chad, coming in their kind of almost like a bloodthirst. What we have seen are incredible scenes. I'm not entirely sure this is RSF strategy because it creates enormous problems for them, even in their own kind of fragile political and military coalition. There had been voices within the key RSF allies like the SPLM North really condemning this incredible violence, and this opens political problems for them.
And Jan, there have been warnings of ethnically motivated killings. I mean, what are the ethnic groups most at risk right now and why are they being targeted?
Well, I'm not entirely sure if it's really like going into a particular ethnic cleansing. I would not. The problem that I see at the moment is that our RSF fighters basically see everybody who is left in El-Fasher as in one way or the other linked to SAF. And they are basically going against everybody who is there and who is trying to flee the city. So as we've heard just before, there is that the main refugee movement goes to Tabila, which is a town controlled by Abu Wahd al-Nur SLM group, the Sudanese Liberation Movement, which is independent of the two main belligerents. But even on the road, people are basically hunted down by RSF contingents that basically kill them indiscriminately. So it's not too much targeted. They just want to have, it appears that it goes against everybody who was left in El-Fasher town.
And the RSF now controls all 5 Darfur state capitals. What challenges does that pose for humanitarian access, for the protection of civilians and for accountability?
Well, there are several elements to this. It creates some political turmoil, surely, and there's a question how this will unfold in the next weeks to come, especially if this is a start of a further RSF offensive or not. In terms of humanitarian access, the problem was always that UN agencies are mainly dependent on an approval of the Port Sudan government for delivering aid, since the UN recognizes in one way or the other, the Port Sudan government as being legitimate, which I think overall is as doubtful as would be recognizing the Tassise counter-government. But in the end, so quite a bit of aid is dependent on that. The second element is that it is completely unsafe in basically all over Darfur to deliver aid. Most people are displaced, but we have seen the aid convoys coming in, attacked from and looted from both sides. It is often even, sometimes it's self-drawn attacks and then RSF attacking them on the ground. We have seen various combinations of attacks on convoys, since SAF wants to prevent this aid going into the hands of RSF, and RSF just wants to take it before it reaches civilian population. So the situation at the humanitarian level is dire. There's no safety net and security force that could protect aid deliveries.
And finally, what scenarios do you see unfolding in the short term, the next sort of weeks and months in Darfur?
Well, essentially, there's two scenarios here and two options, and we don't know which way it is going. One way would be that this is essentially the start of the ceasefire negotiations that are lined up, headed by the US. They started indirect talks with both fighting parties in Washington, D.C. indirectly at the moment. But as with all ceasefire negotiations, before this happens, the parties really make a last big push to get as much ground as they can, and indeed, like in kind of a geostrategic sense, El-Fasher being controlled by RSF now makes it in a way almost easier for ceasefire to basically split the front lines of both sides. The other scenario is simply RSF has now can free a lot of troops by having captured El-Fasher and might have now the appetite, also we've heard about the military movements in Kordofan, to even go again after Khartoum and other places in central Sudan. I would not see Khartoum as safely in the hands of SAF. It is a very fragile ceasefire that is holding there, and basically if RSF deliver with their international support, they get. If they have now the appetite to go for Darfur, I would not think they're incapable of doing so.
Jan Pospisil, Sudan Affairs Analyst and Associate Professor, Centre for Trust, Peace and Social Relations at Coventry University. Thanks so much.